Hi, my name is Laurie Gardner, and this is my interpersonal communication project for HSCO 508. I'm going to be advancing a PowerPoint and letting you know what slide we're on so that you can follow along. So on the next slide, which is slide 2, you'll see introducing me, and that's a picture of me and my family. That's my husband of almost 28 years and my 2 adult children. I have worked in residential and foster care for 10 years. I was a teacher for 7 years. I have my bachelor's degree in leadership development and psychology, which was a liberal studies degree. I have a Master of Arts in teaching, and I'm currently working on a Master's in Human Services Counseling with an emphasis in marriage and family. On the next slide, you'll see my overarching goal, and I picked a verse for this, and it's Philippians 2:3-5. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each one of you to the interest of the other. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So the reason I picked this verse as my overarching goal is I think that it kind of encapsulates everything it takes to have a good conversation. And Stewart actually says that the conversation is the relationship. So if you take that last verse and you change out the words, then it would be in your conversation with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. And the verses before are really descriptors of what that looks like. Do nothing out of selfish ambition, be humble, think of others more importantly than yourself, and their interest as more important than your interest. And so that's where the overarching goal that I chose came from. On the next slide, you see a behavioral blend overview. And so this one's a little bit different than the one that Carbonell has, but I liked it because it showed that there's a continuum. The D and the I are more extroverts. The S and the C are more introverts. D and S are more task-oriented, and I and C are more people-oriented. But as you see, it's a continuum, so it's not black and white in any of those. Carbonell actually looks to what their motivations are. And for D, it's a challenge. For I, it's recognition. For S, it's security. And for C, it's quality. So those are the motivations that Carbonell gives. My own personality blend is on the next slide, and that is SC, which is competent specialist. Some of the things that I really related to that he described in the book were conflict avoidant, peacemaker, poor self-image, security, and quality oriented. And so along with this, I also had to look at my background. I'm from a dysfunctional and abusive family relationships. When I was younger, my dad left at an early age, and so he was absent for a lot of my life. And so I talked about some of this in one of my reflective essays, that I wonder if my behavioral blend is a product of that or if it was innate in me before, but I definitely see that the background that I have amplified those behaviorals, that behavioral blend. And so these things are all true in my own life. Then on the next slide, you'll see, this is slide 6, my interpersonal communication test that I took on Queendom site. And it shows that I'm 68 out of 100 insightful. I feel like that is probably something that I learned. I don't feel like I've always had that or that it's innate in me. I feel like it's something that grew out of my experiences in group homework and foster care as an adult, to learn to really be perceptive and seeing things around me, to be an empathetic listener, to perceive more than just verbals, but to also understand nonverbals. I feel like that was a learned behavior. And on the next slide, this is slide 7, you'll see the benefits and the barriers of an SC. I have passive on each, and that's probably the only one I'll go into detail about, and that's because I believe that it can be a benefit. I am passive, and it gives me time to process, so I'm not really quick to make responses, and I feel like that's a benefit to me, but I know that I can go past that point and it become a barrier where I've actually taken a back seat and let other people take control because of the next things on the list having poor self-esteem, being nervous, easily taken advantage of. And even though peacemaker is on there as a benefit, that can also cause me to be too passive, let other people take control of situations. You'll see the rest of the benefits: peacemaker, task-oriented, patient with people. Peacemaker, I just would like to point out that I learned early on in my career that there's a difference between peacemaking and peacekeeping. Peacekeeping is what I did as a child through distractions. That's easy to do. Peacemaking is hard work of conflict negotiation and having those fierce conversations that Stuart talks about in the text. The other barriers for SCs in communication are poor self-esteem, too reserved, easily taken advantage of. So my own personal communication barriers, I've listed 3 of them in the PowerPoint, but there's definitely more than 3. But for time's sake, I picked the top 3. And so you'll see the first one on slide 8 is advice giving. Peterson says that's advising. Once you're advising, you're not listening, you're talking. And Stewart says that advising is actually a hurtful message. Giving advice, the reason I do it is because it makes me feel important. It's part of my SC blend for wanting to seem competent and to showcase my expertise. And however, Burley Allen points out that it's really not helpful. It's focused on my opinions and beliefs, which may not work for everybody. It does not fit in my overarching goal because it's not putting others' needs above my own. My need to sound important or an expert has taken over my need to listen. So some action steps to fix that. Give information when requested and not opinions. Peterson says that when you start to advise, you should ask, when you're asked a question, you should ask a question. That keeps you from jumping into the advising role. Be honest if you can't help, and offer to help them find the help they need. So my second communication barrier on slide 9 is rescuing. This kind of comes with the territory, or so I thought, of foster care and residential casework, but it really hit home when Burley and Allen was talking about how when you're a rescuer, you have to have a victim. And so I'm actually making people have a victim mentality when I rescue them. And I'm looking down on them, saying that I'm okay and they're not okay. I do it again because I want to seem important, and I jump into conversations with that rescuing mindset. But it really undermines people's self-confidence and doesn't help prepare them for future situations. It doesn't fit my overarching goal because it's not communicating with humility. So some action steps: slow down and allow people to struggle, even though it's hard. They can struggle with their own problems and come up with their own solutions. Provide clarification and summary so the speaker can hear their own thoughts. And if I jump in with a rescue, because I'm sure I will, be graceful and ask for forgiveness. The last communication barrier, a personal one, is defending and defensiveness. Stewart says defensive behavior or communication is the response to a perceived threat. And a lot of times we perceive a threat, but there's no real threat there. And so defensiveness is my default when I feel my expertise, opinions, or beliefs are under attack. This is the only real thud I could kind of relate to when Peterson talked about the thud. My emotions built up, my feelings take over, my brain goes flat, and I'm no longer engaged in listening. I'm doing what Stewart says, which is reloading and getting ready to respond. And so at that point, I'm not listening. I'm no help to the speaker, and that is not having the mind of Christ. The mind of Christ is not defensive, but empathetic listening and loving. So action steps: provide a supportive climate to prevent the need for defensiveness. That kind of cuts it off at the knees if everybody feels free to say what their opinions are without feeling like they've been attacked. And just stop defending, because defending actually equals attacking. On the next slide, you'll see general communication barriers. These are listed in the Burley Allen text: fatigue, semantics, and distractions. So basically, for me, it means that I need to have my hard conversations in the morning when my energy is high, not in the afternoon when my energy is low. I need to make sure that even if I understand the words that are being said, that I understand the meaning behind the words, and eliminate external distractions. Pick a quiet time where I can give face time and be fully mindful of the conversation without distractions of noise, phone calls, kids coming and going. I really need to take time to pull people away for those conversations. And then in conclusion, I just like to use this Maya Angelou quote, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. This hangs above my telephone in my office. And now that I know better, I know what my barriers are, I know the mistakes I've made, it's my responsibility to do better. And I would just like to say thank you for the time that you've put into the course to help us know what our barriers are and the good feedback you've given to help us fix it.